So, I've recently seen Sinners again. I've seen it multiple times, and normally I don't do movie reviews, in part because normally I just don't watch that many movies aside from social events where I cook and play Madame for friends, and I have this lovely projector that I watch movies on. But yeah, Sinners was so good. I just have to yap about it. And one reason why I want to yap about it, in part because it's so good, but I'm a Southern guy. I'm from the South, so a lot of elements of this movie really resonate with me. I mean, just in general, a movie set in 1930s Mississippi is really cool, very tantalizing, and it's like centered around vampires? Yeah, fucking awesome. That's great. This is going to be an unscripted review where I just sort of talk about whatever comes to mind. I do have some notes off to my side here, so it's not going to be totally a rant, but at the same time, yeah, very casual. There's so much good about this movie where it's just very easy to talk about. And a very big reason why I love this movie is that in every scene, regardless of its tone, just radiates so much joy and love and creativity. On a structural, technical level, there's so much mastery going on here, from the writing to the cinematography. All the objective sort of technical stuff is just so splendid, right? But that is, as we've seen before with a lot of shows, not enough. And there is just so much joy in this movie because you could just tell that the actors and the writers are just having a good time riffing off each other. I think the word I'm looking for is authentic. This movie feels so authentic and doesn't stray away from hard topics, but doesn't stray away from laughter either. These days so much media is sanitized. I like how sex is just treated directly. I like how the violence is very direct and unsanitized as well. With the cinematography, I love how dark the dark gets. Like literally though, like the lighting. Like so many movies they're just gray, just constant gray blobs, where the shadows in this movie are just so on point. First, I guess I should probably talk about why it resonated me as a Southerner guy. Now, as you could tell, I am of the white type of Southerner, specifically Cajun Creole. So quick history lesson, I guess. Creole is a broad term used by sort of the mixing pot of races and ethnicities within the South, from the Caribbean, from Spain to all the nations of Africa and all that stuff happening, all that intermixing, right? That is Creole. Creole is just sort of like the all-in-one term, okay? So the characters that we see are Creole. If you're from Mississippi, you're Creole. And of course, with me, I am from the lineage of the French rejects, basically, that got kicked out from France. They moved to Canada. Then there was this whole march from Canada to southern Louisiana. It was a whole thing. So yeah, I'm of the French ancestors of that. From the Acadiana parishes, we're called Cajun. All Cajuns are Creole. Not all Creoles are Cajun. So, and this isn't some white boy thing. Oh yeah, my family immigrated from Germany and I have this heritage. I am a millennial. I am slightly removed, but my grandfather, his language that he was taught by his parents was Cajun French, which was literally beaten out of him from the public school system because that was the height of McCarthyism. My grandparent is a classic boomer, born in 1945. So his generation had a big stigma of sort of reclaiming their French heritage. So even though I'm not black, and this story is set primarily, pretty much entirely about black people and the jukebox joint. At the same time, this area, this sort of milieu, these are my neighbors. This is the kind of music I listen to. I love blues, I love folk, because, look man, the South really fucking sucks. You look up any statistics for the Gulf Coast states, and we are vying to be the best at being the worst at nearly every aspect, okay? The one thing we really have, or I guess the two things, is music and food. Those are the things that even me living in Seattle, who doesn't know much Cajun French, I try to keep alive. Music and food is what all we had to live for. So the fact that this movie keeps circling back to that joy of music and just partying, really, I just love that so much. And Preacher Boy is such a good character. The way he just plays guitar is so soulful. And yeah, I guess your segue to talk about the music in this movie broadly. Every music selection is amazing. It's not just folk. They have sort of a time travel-ish sort of segment that's really good in the movie that everyone is rightfully talking about, that even sees a bit of like 80s electric guitar in there. I also love the heavier, almost cheesy metal segments kind of playing when the vampires show up and do their thing. That's so great. I love how this movie doesn't really stick to a certain genre. It's definitely a period piece of sorts. It's definitely a vampire film. And like the area and the people that it takes place within is very much this melting pot of genre and ideas. Which is why I think this movie is just so artful and so soulful, just so much authenticity. Because it's not trying to be in a box, it's trying to tell its own story. It utilizes techniques like changing aspect ratios and playing a variety of music. There's a lot of funny moments and a lot of serious moments. And yeah, it's such a common theme in many stories relating to the South about complicated relationships with family and lovers and ghosts from the past, right? And something that stood out to me and what elevates this from merely being amazing to being a mastery is how, I guess for lack of a better word, intersectional it is. A lesser writer would have firmly placed the vampires and frankly just the white people in general as being pure evil and the black folk being pure good, which is sort of like the James Cameron way of doing movies. And, in fairness, the vampires are like 99% evil, and the black folk in the movie just want to party. But there is some nuance there. So, like, of course, right, Smoke and Stack, they're literally criminals. Really cool criminals working for the Irish and working for the Italian mob, respectively. But yeah, I like how the characters are flawed and petty and sort of like do some kind of like bad things. Like Delta Slim, for example, the piano musician, right? You could tell he's a little sexist and definitely grumpy and a bit mean and definitely a drunk. And we get a bit of his backstory when he explains just this horrific lynching that he witnessed, that his friend got lynched, and he's sort of like having this like flashback that's playing sort of like the sounds from that flashback in a way that was very reminiscent to me of The Zone of Interest, if you've seen that movie. It was just the hollering and the pain and all that. A lesser movie would have just glossed over these things, but this movie doesn't. I like how sex is portrayed honestly and realistically, and also kind of centers female pleasure for once. You don't often see that in movies, especially mainstream movies, but I think it's so funny how Preacher Boy is getting lessons from Smoke and Stack about how to eat a girl out, right? Which is very funny. That turns out to be a Chekhov gun, by the way. They mentioned it in the beginning of the movie.
Not too hard, not too soft either. You ever had a scoop of that ice cream from downtown? About the same pressure you put on that.
He does get to try out that advice, and turns out, I guess, mob guys do know how to eat pussy. So that's cool. That's a cool scene. And man, sorry, this actually ended up being way more disorganized. I'm just like going off a random list of things I like about it, but that's fine. And the vampires. Now I want to talk about the vampires, because what I love so much about this movie is that we don't have the vampires meet the main cast for a whole hour into the movie, which is unconventional. Now we do get to meet Remick as he is being chased by the Choctaws vampire hunters, which, by the way, I don't need a direct sequel to this movie. I do want a movie about Choctaw vampire hunters. That sounds so fucking cool. We need this. But yeah, we get to see Remick convert some KKK guys into vampires. Really cool. But we don't actually see Remick meet Smoke and Stack until it is literally an hour into the movie. And it's amazing how captivating and how entrenched everyone is in this movie. They managed to pull off not having the main protagonist and antagonist meet for a whole hour, and it works because all the world building, all the character building is just so fascinating to watch, where just like this wonderful, the pacing in this movie is just amazing, right? But Remick himself, okay, I love the fact that he is Irish. It would have been a very easy thing to do to make him an English aristocrat or a Southern plantation owner, right? Very easy. And it would fit, it fits the vampire genre quite nicely. Old aristocrats decaying and sort of lost in time, still trying to hold on to what they have. Yeah, that fits. Now, Remick is still evil. There's no doubt about it. But there is a tragedy about it because he predates Christianity. You know, there's a scene where he explains a bit.
Long ago, the man who stole my father's land forced these words upon us. I hated those men, but the words still bring me comfort.
And, you know, Christianity and really just the British largely, they just erase so many cultures, push so many cultures out. And that is like the shared commonality between Remick and Smoke, Stack, and friends, right? Is he also has a culture that he like lost and is trying to fight for to have of sorts. Making Remick be Irish is just such an intersectional viewpoint to have because the Irish were also treated very badly. In fact, the KKK, yeah, sure, they didn't like blacks, but they didn't like the Irish either. Back then, our notion of what whiteness was very different. Whiteness is a very modern concept as we think of it today. But Irish people are higher on the totem pole than black people in the South. So really what ends up being is this wonderful metaphor of sort of, he's like almost like a middle manager of like hidden. He's not at the top of the pyramid of like, oh yeah, that's like the plantation owner vampire. Like we knock him down, you know, it's like this big deal. No, Remick is very hidden in plain sight, very much like vampires are. I just think that's a really cool detail. And when they start playing The Rocky Road to Dublin,
A brand new pair of brogues to rattle over the bar.
that is such a captivating scene. I keep thinking of so many scenes in this movie, but that is the one that lives rent-free in my head and for a while because out of all the types of music, Irish music is probably not the most intimidating, really. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, look, old white music dancing, and it's very silly. And I love folk music, so all this is sort of a compliment of sorts. But they make it so creepy, in part because it's that contrast of like bloody vampires dancing in a circle at night with, yes, proper blacks, like proper, like, we're talking about color now, right? Like, it's actually dark outside, and they keep it dark outside, and all you see is the glow of their eyes, like these like predators. And ew, this is a tangent among tangents, but I tried briefly covering that song because I was like, I like the lyrics, and it's just like, okay, it's just an A minor, and I know a little bit about guitar. I've been playing guitar for a while, but my skills have stagnated. But I was like, yeah, I could play this song. But I was like doing the rhythm, and here, like listen to it like a bit. That rhythm is fucked up, man. At least to someone who doesn't know music. Ends up being, 9/8 time signature. But I was like thinking like, what the fuck is going on? Because it sounds like this like build up, this like intense sort of thing. And I can't wrap my mind about it. I haven't really practiced that much either. But yeah, 9/8 time signature. It was pretty fun to like listen to and examine. That ends up being a cool song. But back to also talking about vampires generally, I like how they play it a bit loose with the rules with vampires. This is not like a Brandon Sanderson novel where it's going to be like laid out in scientific detail, but very folky. You know, stakes kill them, garlic kills them. They also seem to have like a collectivist mind where like the older vampire exerts the most control over the lesser thralls. But they all sort of have their own identity, even though really the humans that they inhabit are like dead. It seems like when you're a vampire, you die, and the thing that now inhabits your body just also has like your memories. Another favorite part about the Rocky Road to Dublin scene is just how clearly it shows Remick's power. All these other vampires are just marionettes to him. They're of one mind, and he controls them. And it's like this intensity that is just really awesome. Another specific scene that I want to talk about more is the time-traveling music scene where Preacher Boy is playing his guitar, and then it sort of like morphs where it's showing different generations of music from past and present, and like the whole juke joint burns down. Like that scene, just amazing. That scene was so impressive. And for me, my takeaway of it, I've seen a lot of like interesting takes from the scene and what it means, but what I got from it was that music not only connects time and space together, it connects past and present and future and everything, but also it shows that, like, when it comes to being oppressed, when it comes to other people trying to destroy you and your entire way of life, the music surviving shows that that is impossible or very hard to do. Playing music in that same spot, but through multiple generations, to me that shows, like, you could try to kill us, you could try to eradicate us. The KKK can try to kill everyone here, like they tried to do, like, later the next day, right? But you can't take away the music, and the music will outlast you, will outlive you. And even if it's commodified, obviously anytime a black person makes music, it has been commodified and stolen by, frankly, a white dude. That just has happened in history repeatedly. You know, what are the origins of rock and roll music? What are the origins of jazz? Basically any cool thing, frankly, it's probably a black person doing it. But that scene to me, it's like, we will outlast whatever trial occurs. We will outlast whatever tribulations you throw at us. And I think that's really amazing. And the ending where, oh God, I'm blanking on who's who, but is it Smoke or is it Stack? I'm just gonna say Smoke, where Smoke just guns down the KKK guys. It's just really cathartic, right? We love to see, I was talking about how I like how nuanced Remick is and how nuanced the twins are, right? At the same time, it's good just to see some good versus evil violence with the good winning, because obviously fuck the KKK. It's always fun to see them get shot up and die. And just him sort of hallucinating his dead child, just very, very sweet and fitting. And at the end, we see all grown up Sammy playing blues, except Sammy is played by Buddy Guy, just this legendary blues guitarist. It's actually kind of amazing to see on screen, right? Just riffing it up, and he gets to see, Mary and Stack still as vampires, and like, oh yeah, we smell death on you. And he's just like, yeah, but you know what? That night before y'all fuckers came in, before it became nighttime, that was like the best day of my life. But yeah, Buddy Guy playing that role is just so fitting, right? As a very old, legendary blues musician from Louisiana, by the way. He's more of a Chicago guy, but still. Yeah, I'm going in circles. I'm just talking about how great this movie is in different ways for God knows how long. Hopefully editing will tighten this up. But I just had to yap about it because everything about this movie just hits so close to home with the dancing and the music. And who just doesn't love a good vampire film, right? That's just like, oh, that last, it was like 15 minutes where they're all fighting when Grace is like, come on in, so she could kill them. And her death was just so shocking and just so intense. But yeah, I don't see that many movies, but damn, this is like one of the best ones I've ever seen. It really is just a transcendental experience. This movie did not have to go as hard as it did, but it really just did. And yeah, I want to see not a sequel, but I want to see a vampire movie about Choctaw vampire hunters. That's all I want. You left me wanting more, and that's what I want to see. So yeah, I'm the Rat Shepherd. Thanks for tuning in. This is a very rare movie review. Next review I'm doing is of South of Midnight, which has similar themes, I think, and tried similar ground, which is sort of why I'm on this Southern mindset, right? But yeah, thanks. Please like and subscribe and all that, and I'll see you all for the next one. Thanks.